Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello. So tonight I'm gonna dive right into it because it is a heavy training. It is a little bit more loaded than usual, and I'll leave the end of the call for questions as always. Yes, Diana, you should be excited. You should be excited because this is the phase that you're in. So let's go. Let's dive in. Uh, the bellies is getting started here as well. Let me go under presenter mode. All right. And share my screen with you guys, of course. Uh, all right. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. So let's go there. And all right, let's go ahead and get started. The science of muscle building, mastering your lean build phase. And you guys are going to understand why we talk about lean build phase instead of just a regular bulk phase or a regular build phase. But starting from the beginning, what is muscle hypertrophy? If you've never heard that word, get familiarized with it. It's basically muscle growth. Okay. It's just a fancy word for muscle growth, and it is the process of increasing muscle size. And this happens when those muscle fibers undergo stress and repair themselves stronger and larger over time. Types of muscle hypertrophy. This is just for your own knowledge, obviously, just so you know where we're coming from here. But myofibrillar hypertrophy is the growth of those muscle fibers that leads to increase in strength and density of the muscle. And there's the sarcoplasmatic hypertrophy, which is the increased storage of glycogen and fluids inside the muscle, leading to a fuller look. Not necessarily a denser, bigger muscle, but a more fuller look because of the glycogen and the fluids that's in the muscle. Okay. So important to understand the difference. And just a recap on why it is so crucial, especially for women over 30, to build enough muscle. Okay. Supports faster metabolism, decreases the rate of age-related sarcopenia, which is the natural muscle loss that happens after the age of 30. Improves your bone density, reducing the risk of osteoporosis, enhances body composition by increasing lean mass and reducing fat percentage, decreases the chance of metabolic complications, improves overall health and increased longevity, improves insulin sensitivity, reduces joint pain, supports better movement, prevents injuries by strengthening tendons and ligaments, enhances posture, core strength, reduces back pain, all of those things. Lifting preserves the collagen and the skin elasticity as well, preventing sagging. So it's literally the potion that you're looking for if you want to look younger as you age. It reduces the appearance of cellulite, improving skin tightness as well, boosts testosterone and growth hormone, and obviously helps you look hot AF. Like you're never going to change the shape of your body and how your body looks without muscle. You can lose as much weight as you want, you're never going to get there. So if you're over 30, building muscle is obviously a non-negotiable if you want to stay lean, if you want to feel confident and strong for life, especially as you age and you want to make sure that you still have the autonomy to do things on your own as you get older. And the only way to prevent muscle loss is to strength train. Okay. Now, some metabolic aspects of muscle building. Muscle is a metabolic active tissue, meaning that it requires calories, it requires energy. The more muscle you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate, meaning that you're going to burn more calories even at rest just because you have more muscle on your frame. Okay. It's that comparison. I should have found a picture here to show you guys the difference between a person, like two people around the same body type, same height, same age, same weight, but one of them has more muscle on their frame. They're going to, one, look completely different, and two, they're going to have a higher metabolic rate as well. Okay. Now, protein synthesis versus breakdown. So, for muscles to grow, protein synthesis, which is the building of new muscle proteins, must exceed protein breakdown. Otherwise, we lose muscle. Even if we are lifting in the gym, if we're not ensuring that we are optimizing for muscle protein synthesis to surpass muscle breakdown, protein breakdown, muscle building is not going to happen. Okay. So just by lifting weights, it doesn't mean that you're building muscle if the other aspects are not in place. It also obviously help with hormonal factors, estrogen, which helps to protect muscle tissue and aids in recovery. Testosterone and growth hormone as well. Women have much lower levels than men, which makes muscle gain really slower for women, but obviously still possible with the right training and nutrition in place. And lastly, for insulin sensitivity, which plays a role. So, insulin is a growth hormone as well, and it plays a role in nutrient partitioning. So, proper carbohydrate intake supports muscle recovery too. So, we talk a lot about protein, but aside from protein, we also want to make sure that we're having adequate intake of carbohydrate to support that muscle recovery, to support a performance, and overall to support muscle growth as well. Okay. Now, the main drivers of hypertrophy, the main drivers for muscle gain. And before I dive into this, just wanted to read the room a little bit. So if you guys are have any questions as I go through this, just drop them in the chat, and I'll go over by the end of the call. Okay. So main drivers of muscle hypertrophy. Number one, mechanical tension, which is the tension placed on the muscle through progressive overload, which means that you want to train closer to failure. The closer you are to failure, the closer the mechanical tension. And obviously, if you're lifting heavy, that's also going to be the case. That's going to be the case if you're pushing your sets hard enough close to failure. Okay, so mechanical tension is number one. Number two is volume. So the total of the work done per muscle group per week. That's typically how we measure. So there is it's not that the more volume, the better. There is a diminishing returns when you're doing just too much volume that you're not actually gaining anything from it. But the total amount of work that you do on a weekly basis, that's going to be one of the main drivers also for hypertrophy. But I'm going to talk about another thing that I find even more important than this in a little bit. And then third, proximity to failure, which we've talked about, I think a couple of weeks ago or last week, I don't even remember, which is training hard enough, which is pushing yourself to get close to that point where you're no longer able to lift the weight. So the closer you are to failure, the more you're going to recruit high threshold motor units. And those are the ones that are going to be responsible for muscle growth. So that's the initial signal that's going to be sent to them from the muscles. And then obviously with adequate nutrition and recovery, which you're going to talk about as well, that's when muscle growth happens. Okay. And then we have exercise selection. So choosing the right movements for the goal. Okay. So making sure that in each training phase, we have a focus, obviously, for most women here in the program specifically, we are more so when we enter a lean build phase, we have already gone through at least 6 months or maybe a year in the program. So you are at the point where, okay, I want to pay more attention to specific areas. And you want to do that in blocks of phases, because the reality is if you try to optimize everything at once, you're not going to be able to do that. So it comes a point where that becomes really, really important, depending on your specific goals. Overall, for the first 6 months, the first year, working everything around the same volume per week, you should be good, because we're still trying to maximize for strength as well. You're still learning the movements. And then number 5, frequency, how often to train a muscle, how many times per week. Number 6, progressive overload, which is the gradual increase in weights, reps, sets, just that gradual increase in stress on the muscle. And 7, mind muscle connection, which is making sure that we're using controlled tempo, full range of motion, that we are, depending on the exercise, that we're really feeling that muscle working. We're not just lifting weights from point A to point B, just to finish the set, just to complete the reps, right? So training with intention is important, which those are all things that we've talked about before. Now, some of the training principles in a little bit more detail for specifically for muscle growth, when it comes to progressive overload, so that gradual increase in weights and reps, intensity over time. So over a period of time, you are getting stronger. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to get stronger every single week, but we should see a trend after 1, 2, 3 months that you are applying more attention to the muscle as time goes by. And that's when you should challenge yourself, which I'm going to bump up to number 3 here, which is the intensity and effort, which is training within 0 to 3 reps of failure to ensure muscle stimulation. And especially for those who are not used to these terms and are not used to doing this, to training in this way, challenge yourself to, okay, I don't know what my failure point is. I'm afraid to fail. So go and attempt to fail on the safest movement possible. Go and attempt to fail on, a Smith machine, on another, I don't know, um a leg curl, something like that, where nothing bad is going to happen, right? If you fail at those movements, even things like hip thrusts, what's the worst that's going to happen? If you can't lift a weight, you're not going to lift a weight. But if you want to go even further, you could go complete your sets, go to what you think is your failure point. Stop there, give it 5 to 10 seconds and try again. And then do the same and repeat the cycle for 2, 3 times. And you're probably going to notice that, oh, okay, I had more in me than I thought. But you have to constantly do these tests. And obviously, we're talking intensity, we're talking bringing things close to failure, provided that your execution is correct, provided that your technique, your form is on point, provided that you have full range of motion. Just lifting heavier and just pushing yourself hard, if your technique is weak and poor, it's not going to lead to muscle growth. Okay. Now I'm going to touch a little bit on nutrition for muscle growth, but which is very straightforward as far as caloric intake. And this is the main difference that I mentioned between lean build and advanced build. So when we're talking about advanced build, we're talking about the traditional calorie surplus. So we're talking about eating above your maintenance calories. And when we're talking about a lean build, we are trying to build as much muscle as we can without adding on as much body fat. A little bit of body fat is normal and expected, But with the lean build, we're going to maintain calories um, around maintenance calories, maybe a very, very, very little surplus, but with enough high protein intake. And why? Because the main different than fat loss, in fat loss, nutrition is the most important piece, right? In fat loss, it's very, very straightforward. You eat less, you move a little bit more, you lose fat, you lose weight. But with muscle building, it's not that straightforward. It's not that you can do all the things. It's not guaranteed that you're building muscle. So, um, and the most important signal that your body is going to get is from training. And we see a lot of things that can be optimized with your training, that can be improved with your training proficiency, training skills, lifting skills that takes years to develop, and just becoming better at that task of lifting properly and giving your body that signal. Just, if you eat on maintenance calories with enough protein, with the right amount of carbs, fats, all the things, and you just focus on improving your training, you're going to see a much bigger difference on your physique. Then the advanced build is more so, okay, this person really trains well. It's not about training hard and going balls to the walls, but this person really is already an advanced lifter. She knows how to lift well, she moves well, she's strong. She's been doing this for years. She knows what she's doing. She's maximized her potential. She's been there before. So now we need to ensure that she's on a calorie surplus. So that would be the main difference between a lean build and an advanced build. And for most people, a lean build is more than enough to stay there for, uh, a year, 2 years, even until they become more proficient with lifting. Okay. And then when it comes to protein requirements, carbohydrates, meal timing, super straightforward, super simple. So protein doesn't change much overall, whether you are in muscle building, maintenance, fat loss, it's still the same. 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight would be the recommendation for carbs. 2 to 3 grams per pound of body weight, and fats 0.3 to 0.4 per pound of body weight, enough to support hormone production. And meal timing, which is not that important when we're talking about fat loss. With muscle building, if we're trying to optimize as much as we can, we're going to aim to get pre and post workout, carbs and protein beforehand, and carbs and protein after training as well, just to optimize that protein synthesis. Okay. Now, another very overlooked factor for muscle growth is recovery and lifestyle factors. You can train hard, you can push yourself really hard in the gym. You can do everything perfect with your nutrition. You can optimize every aspect of all of that. But if you're not paying attention to the recovery and lifestyle factors, such as sleep, stress management, hydration, you're not going to be putting your body in an optimal environment for muscle building. Okay. Especially again, we're as women, we're already in disadvantage because we have less testosterone than men. So it is already really hard to start. Okay. It's already harder to build muscle to begin with. And then as we age, another factor comes to play that impairs our sleep and stress management and things like that. It becomes even harder and harder and harder. Okay. And I don't say this to discourage you, but for you to be aware of the things that play a role. Because sometimes we put so much focus on either nutrition or training. Oh, well, I'm good. I can train 5 days a week. I can, I go balls to the walls. I train really hard and I can eat really clean. Sure. But are you doing the hard work of taking care of your sleep? Right? Muscle repair and growth happen during sleep. Okay. So prioritizing 7 to 9 hours is going to be essential. And stress management, again, chronic elevated stress. Obviously, we're all stressed out. We all have stressful lives, sure. But how do we manage that, right? What are the things that we are intentionally doing in order to reduce that perceived stress and to navigate situations in a better way? Okay. And then a little bit on deloads and rest days. Deload weeks could, but Dorota and I were even talking about this today. It is in the intention of deload weeks if, is for you to recover, right? So we reduce the intensity. We go the opposite of the things that we're talking about here. So we would reduce the intensity, the volume intentionally to prevent, burnout, to make sure that you have that adequate recovery. However, most people were not pushing themselves hard enough to the point that they need a deload week. And just if you look overall, lifestyle wise, you're probably every 6 to 8 weeks or every 12 weeks, you're traveling, you're doing, you're taking a week off no matter what, just because it is. So there you go. That's your deload week. So for, busy people, busy professionals like us, if you're not, super regimented with the training and really pushing yourself for over 12, 16 weeks, you don't really need a deload week. Okay. So this doesn't really apply to the majority of you. And then rest days, of course, at least like 1 or 2 for optimal recovery. And that's why you guys have majority of you are either on a 3 or 4 day split per week, which is plenty of volume, plenty of frequency, and that gives you enough time to recover from your sessions. If you feel like it's not enough, it's probably because you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Okay. And then obviously hydration, muscles are 75% water. So dehydration definitely impairs your performance and recovery. So these are some key points that we typically pay attention just when on fat loss, but they are so much more impactful during muscle building and lifestyle wise as we go through the multiple different phases. Now, this is something that a lot of you want to know. What's realistic to expect? How much weight am I going to put? Or am I gaining too much weight? Or I'm not seeing results fast enough. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit too when we talk about mindset. But all considering that you're training properly, okay, with adequate intensity, that you're pushing yourself, that you're doing everything perfectly, considering that your volume is on point, frequency, all the things, considering that you're eating appropriately, considering that your recovery is top notch, everything is aligned, okay? These are the timelines that we should expect to see on average. Okay, this is an average, obviously, give or take a few pounds here and there. So, and the rate of muscle gain will highly depend on your experience level, meaning your training proficiency. Okay, not just how many years you have been working out, but your proficiency as a lifter. How many years have you been really doing all the right things? And obviously your training quality and your genetics also play a role. So if we're talking a beginner, 0, and here I listed beginner in years, or the training experience in years. But in my point of view, it's a little bit different, and I'm going to talk about it. So for a beginner, 0.5 to 1 pound per month, 6 to 12 pounds per year. Okay. So it is it is like a beginner have a lot more advantage than a non-beginner when it comes to muscle gain. Then intermediate, you would be looking at 0.25 to 0.5 pound per month of gain, which equates to 3 to 6 pounds per year. And then as you get more advanced, it gets harder and harder. So 0.125 to 0.25 pound per month, 1.5 to 3 pounds per year in muscle gain. Okay, muscle, not weight. And I'll explain the difference. And the reason why I said that the beginner, intermediate, and advanced, I laid it out, I separated between how many years you've been training. However, I look at it very differently, especially having worked with hundreds of women over the years. A beginner doesn't necessarily mean that she's only been going to the gym for a year or training for a year. Even if you have been working out and you're not new to the gym, you maybe have been lifting weights for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even. You might be a beginner for adequate muscle growth because you haven't been applying everything else that we've talked about here. You haven't been really on a program with progressive overload. You haven't been prioritizing muscle growth. Your strength is still subpar. So the things that you have been doing are not necessarily strategic to maximize muscle growth and strength. So that would put you in the category of a beginner because you're a beginner following this new strategic plan. So a lot more women fall into the category of a beginner between beginner and intermediate more than they think about because it's not just a matter of how many years but how efficient you are, how proficient you are. It's just like in any career. It's, oh, I've been doing the same thing for 20 years. I've been working at this for 20 years. Sure, but did you grow over time or have you been repeating the same things for 20 years? That doesn't make your experience better. That doesn't add necessarily value just because it's been a lot of years. And I've shared my story many times too. I spent probably a decade lifting weights and going to the gym and doing all the things and doing random things and thinking that I was doing all the right things before I really started following a strategic approach. And then that's when I started seeing real results, right? So a lot more women are in the beginner, maybe intermediate category, even if they have um, a lot more years of experience. Okay. Now, in terms of weight gain, which is different. So we would be looking and just the difference between muscle gain. Okay, so the previous slide, we talked about how much the potential for muscle gain per month or year. And here, what that would entail in weight. Why? Because you don't just build muscle. So the weight on the scale is not just muscle. So if you look at this scale, this month and next month, it is 5 pounds, you're 5 pounds heavier. You did not build 5 pounds of muscle, okay, in a month. You didn't. That's water, that's, glycogen in the muscles. There's more inflammation there as well because you're pushing hard. There's more food. So there's all of those things that are going to reflect on the scale. So that's important to make that distinction, okay? And another factor too, women build muscle about half of the rate of men due to low testosterone, which makes sense. First year of proper training, okay, first year of proper training. So even if you've been in this program for more than a year, and we are now just starting, like the wheels are starting to turn, and you're finally accepting that you need to pay attention to this, or it's time to, finally accept that this is going to be important for you. That's when we start counting. Okay. So the first year of proper training, that's where it yields to the most muscle growth and then it slows down. Obviously, genetics play a big role, but most women in general, on average, will not gain more than 20, 25 pounds of muscle in a lifetime naturally. So even if we've gained more weight than that, which is normal, again, um, through the lifetime, the genetic potential would be 20 to 25 pounds of muscle, again, through a lifetime. Okay. Um, Now, weight gain per month, what to expect, just so you can have, that perspective of how slow it is and what we're looking for. So if we are gaining too rapidly, then it means that something's off. We might be putting on too much muscle unnecessarily. And if it's not happening at all, and if you're still maybe plateaued for like 2, 3, 4 months, or if you're, decreasing your weight, then something is off. And you've been consistent, obviously. So we would be looking at, for a beginner intermediate, anywhere from 1 pound um, to 1.5 pounds per month, and then intermediate 0 0.5 to 1 pound per month. So advanced, it's a little bit less, but for most of you, 1 to 2 pounds, I want to say, would be considered uh, a realistic rate of weight gain per month. Okay. But a good rule of thumb to keep in mind is 1 to 2% of your body weight per month, and no more than 10% of your total weight gain in 6 months. So that's a good gauge. That's a good metric for you to keep in mind. So when we start a lean build phase, when we start the focus on building muscle and we say that the scale is going to go up, we're not just, okay, it's going to go up indefinitely and you're gaining weight, and how much weight. There is there is a strategic approach behind this, and there are numbers to back it up, so we know if we're heading in the right direction or if we're not heading in the right direction. Okay. And like I said, muscle is only part of the weight gain. The rest is glycogen, water, and minimal fat. um and the lean build approach minimizes that fat gain while maximizing muscle growth as well. Aggressive bulking or increasing your calorie surplus unnecessarily, especially if you don't have the training portion of things taken care of, that will just lead to excess fat gain, which, it's going to make things a lot harder in the future. And this is only applicable for true advanced lifter as well. Now, how long? Oh, what did I do? I don't know. How long should women spend building muscle? So, optimal muscle building phases, okay, and this is something that we talk about constantly, a minimum of 6 to 12 months. Okay. It is slow. It is slow. And 6 to 12 months doing things the right way. So, if within those 6 to 12 months, we spend 4 months of that just getting into the groove of things and getting into consistency and learning the movements, and which is normal too. Like, I would set my mind for an even longer build, because then if you start here and then you have this like 3, 4 months of working on building consistency, working on understanding how to apply the program and things like that, then okay, we're truly starting your muscle building phase here, when you're like, okay, I got this, right? But again, it always depends on the experience level. So the more advanced you get, the longer of a building phase you're going to need. And also, the leaner you are, the longer of a building phase you're going to need too. But no one should stay in a lean build phase for less than 6 months, because that's going to be very unproductive for you, especially considering that those factors, such as training intensity, learning how to train properly, learning about food, getting consistent with things, that takes time. That is normal to, take a little bit of time. So that accounts for a good portion of those 6 initial months. Um, and just reinforcing that muscle gain happens in seasons, not weeks. So committing to at least 6 to 12 months is necessary, and cutting too soon will just, prolong the agony or the limbo that you're in, because you're always in that cycle of, I want to build a little bit and then I want to cut and then I want to build and then I don't want to cut, and then your body's not really changing, okay? Because you're always afraid to go and immerse yourself into that. And lastly, you must be at a healthy body fat percentage to focus exclusively on muscle building. Okay. And that's something that we talk about on our initial call, on our introduction call with me. I explained that the fourth phase, the lean build phase, is going to be dependent upon where you are at. This is not a given. Okay. Not everyone is going to be ready for that lean build phase anytime soon. Okay. We need to make sure that we we are at a healthy body fat percentage to start focusing only on that because we don't want to gain unnecessary body fat and just make things harder in the future. Okay. So the ideal body fat percentage to start, it will depend on your current body composition, of course, your fat storage patterns, comfort level, as well, where you're at mindset wise with your physique. And then obviously health and hormonal balance. Because if you are at a higher body fat percentage and you do gain excess fat, that can that can affect insulin sensitivity, which can impact muscle growth too, and then impair your recovery. Okay. And this sweet spot is anywhere between 18 to 22%, just to, to be on the safe side. If you're above 23, 25%, then a short fat loss phase to get you a little bit leaner would make things better for you, as it ensures better partitioning of the nutrients into the muscles, and you would be much more comfortable starting to gain some weight. Okay. So this is why it's important to go through phases, and this is why we emphasize this so much in the program, to do things appropriately and based on where you are in your journey. And in most cases, we do need to reduce that body fat percentage. Even if your goal is muscle building on the long term, we do need to decrease your body fat percentage so your body can respond better to when you are building muscle. Okay. Now, how to determine your body fat percentage? Just quickly on this, because I know you're gonna have questions. Um, the in-body scans at the gyms, they're all shit. They're all shit. Don't even. Body fat percentage that your bathroom scale tells you, they're all shit. Don't, please don't. Okay. So those two things, never ever trust. Okay. Um, and there's no 100% accurate way to measure body fat. None of this. But there are ways to kind of gauge where you're at. And the numbers are not necessarily super important on this. Okay. It's good to have an idea, but we can have an idea with a visual estimation. And that's why we ask for photos, because we can look and see and gauge where you're at, right? Calipers and skin fold, that's a good way. DEXA scan, it's accurate as well. I would prefer the DEXA scan over calipers, just because there's room for human error with the calipers. It depends. Like, you would have to go, if you pick one method, go with that one method for all your visits. So at least the way that you're measuring is accurate, right? Or as accurate as it can be. But I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't get obsessed with this. I have no clue what my body fat percentage is or were when I was leaner. I just look in the mirror and I like to see my veins. I like to see my abs popping. There you go. I'm good. I don't care about the percentage itself. If it's 17 or 18, I really don't care. But this is good information to know, so you know where we're aiming, where we're going, right? Where we're starting and where we're going. So these photos, for example, they can give you a rough estimation about where you are body composition wise, and where ideally we want to be to start thinking about muscle building. So we want to be anywhere between 18 to 22. So between picture number 3 and number 4 here. Anything above that, we can stay on maintenance. We can do a fat loss phase first, but a lean build is not going to be recommended. Okay. Bottom line, women need patience and long-term commitment to muscle gain. The process is slow. Okay. You're not going to see progress in just like a few weeks, but it does pay off in strength, aesthetics, metabolism, if done consistently with the right strategies. Now, I'm going to put a pause here. Just if you guys have any questions, let me know, drop it in the chat, and I'll be answering them. But just quickly on common fears and mindset shifts. The first one, I didn't even include here on the list, but and I was even talking to another client about this the other day, which is about leveling up, which is about the fact that 99.9% of the people around you are not going to be doing this. 99% of the people around you are going to still be trying to get healthier, right? They're still over there on grade one and you've graduated. Your problem, if you are on a lean build, if you are now talking about muscle gain, muscle hypertrophy, optimizing things, your problem is no longer consistency. It's no longer, getting to the gym. It's no longer, having the discipline to show up for yourself. You already do that. But the majority of people around you, they don't. So they will never understand the phase that you're in. They will never understand your problems. It's like taking a poor person, like a person whose like income is like 30 grand a year versus somebody who makes 1 million a year. The person with 1 million a year have completely different problems than the person that makes 30 grand a year. Like this person is never going to understand the person who makes $1 million a year. How does she like what kind of problems is that? I don't get it. They're never going to get because different levels, different devils. So as you move through your journey, you got to level up the sources that you're consuming information from. Who are you spending your time with? Who are you listening to? Because if your cousin Susie is trying to lose 50 pounds and she sees you gaining weight because you're building muscle, she's going to make weird comments about it because she understands nothing about this, right? And she'll probably put you down if you let her, right? Oh, I thought that diet should work by now. Instead of losing, you're gaining? What? But she doesn't understand where you are now. And then you get confused. And you might not be able to change everything about the person, the people who you surround yourself with, especially when it comes to family members. Some of them you can, some of them you can, block it on Facebook. Anyways, you might not be able to do that, but you're able to immerse yourself in the right environments to make that new identity, to make the things that you're doing now feel more normal to you. Because what is normal depends on the environment that you're in. If you're amongst bodybuilders, none of this is new to them. This is what they do. They go through phases. They're talking about muscle gain. They're pushing hard in the gym. They want to grow. It's a different mindset. It's a different conversation. People will understand you. So put yourselves in rooms like this program, but also like the sources that you're grabbing information from. So if you are now in a muscle building phase and you're still listening to, podcasts and seeing influencers and following people who are talking about getting healthier and move more and just, eat less, move more, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. So level up with your environment so it becomes easier for you to go through these phases and these transitions that are new for a lot of women. Okay. Now, the first fear that we all have is the fear of bulking up, the fear of, building too much muscle. Oh, I already have a lot of muscle on my arms. I already have a lot of muscle on this or my thighs or this or that. I don't want to build too much muscle there. I don't want to, and so you avoid pushing yourself hard on those exercises. That's what I did when I was starting out or starting to push myself hard enough. I didn't want to do upper body because I didn't want to grow my arms even more. But then that was counterproductive for me because as I built muscle on my arms, they got leaner and leaner. And just keep this thing in mind. It is impossible for women to build too much muscle. Impossible. Impossible. Girls, everything is against us. Everything. So you're not going to accidentally, because you trained a little bit harder, because you've pushed yourself slightly harder than last week, you're now like a Hulk. No, it's not going to happen. Okay. The bulkiness that comes over time that you might be feeling comes from not addressing and aligning your nutrition with your training and not training correctly and not going through a fat loss phase after a muscle building phase. Okay. The number two here, day scale will go up. It's inevitable. We talked about the expectation. So if you're watching the replay, just go back. We just talked about the rate of weight gain. We just talked about what to expect, how long to expect. So the scale will go up. And over the years, as you build muscle, you'll weigh more. You will. So accept that, but you'll look a lot better. Okay. So expect to gain zero point 0.5 to 1.5 pounds per month. And again, this is after we've already optimized what we can. This is after we've learned how to train efficiently, how to apply proper intensity, all of the things, right? It's not just because, oh, okay, I'm starting a lean build tomorrow. So a month from now, I should be 1 pound up. No, 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 no. We're first paying attention to how you're doing things if they're done correctly. Okay. And now how to track progress beyond the scale. Progress photos, but we take it every single week because that's the system that we have for check-ins. But comparison should happen like every 4 to 6 weeks, even a little bit more, and always flexing because that's when you can, visibly see the muscles popping. Really, if I'm not flexing, I'm not showing anything. So take the weekly photos, but compare side by side every 4 to 6 weeks. Um, but you might not see a lot of changes for the longest time. Muscle building phase is the most important phase, but it is also the hardest phase mentally because you're putting in a lot of effort, but you're not going to necessarily see a lot of changes while you're going through it. Okay. Number two, which is my favorite, is strength tracking. And that's not the feeling of getting stronger, but like, are your numbers really improving? Are you like, how many chin-ups can you do unassisted without the bands? What is your deadlift numbers? What is your squat numbers? What is your hip thrust? Are you improving on those? Are you getting stronger over time? Again, still considering that you are maintaining good technique, good form, etc. Right? And then body measurements. So your weight is going up, but you're keeping your waist relatively the same. That's good. That's good. And it's typically what happens in a really when we nail things on a lean build phase. Now, this is also called a fluff phase because some water retention is going to be normal in a surplus or in a lean build even, but it should even out over time. So you shouldn't be seeing like huge gains, but it is normal. Okay. Um, and like I said, be prepared to not see your muscles while you're building it. It's like building an underground construction. You're not going to see a lot until they build it from the ground up. Okay, the definition that you want. So, oh, I want more defined shoulders. I want more definition on my legs. That will come after the fat loss phase to reveal the muscle. So we build, 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 and then we cut the fat on top, and that's the definition. Okay, but while we're building it, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference on on your body. You're not going to see the muscle definition through this phase. So that's not what we're seeking during a lean build phase. Okay. Now, some performance and strength benchmarks, just for the fun of it. Okay. This obviously looks different depending on where you're at in your journey and what kind of goals we have. But because a muscle building phase, a lean build phase is a little bit of a mind fuck, to put it like in plain English. When it comes to seeing that result, you train super hard and you're like, okay, am I really moving the needle forward here? Even if you know about, the targets and the expectations and things like that, it is, good to shift your focus from, oh, is my body changing, to am I getting stronger, right? How close are you to these benchmarks? Deadlifts between 1.5 to 2 times your body weight. Squats 125 to 1.5 times your body weight. Hip thrusts 2.5 to 3 times your body weight. Bench presses 0.75 to 1 pound of your body to 1 time your body weight. Pull-ups 5 to 10 strict reps, like unassisted pull-ups. Can you do them? Right? If you can't right now, those are great benchmarks to have, right? Okay, I can only do 2 pull-ups right now. Right. Let's work up to 5. Let's work up to 10, right? How much do you squat right now? How much do you deadlift right now? Let's work on deadlift. So for the next 6 months, that's what we're doing. We're programming deadlift, and that's what we're going to be strong at and improve. And that shifts your focus from, is my body changing? Is my body changing? And by default, if you are getting stronger, if you have, good technique, if you had a good base there of, range of motion, things like that, and all the other pieces are in place, your physique is going to thank you for it as well. Because strength and hypertrophy are not necessarily the same thing. They're not the same thing. But as you grow muscle, you get stronger. And sometimes when you get stronger, you also grow your muscles. Okay. So build strength to drive hypertrophy. Prioritize glutes, legs, upper body pull strength. Okay, so lots of back work. So for you girls who want, I want more defined core, I want a leaner core, I want, a smaller waist, but I don't want to get too bulky. Upper body pulls. So lots of back workouts. Anything that we're doing with our backs, shoulders, those create a very aesthetically pleasing, proportionate physique. Okay. That creates the illusion of a smaller waist. So don't be afraid to put all of your effort there. Now, some of the biggest mistakes that we see across the board, when it comes to muscle building, one, not eating enough, or getting sloppy with your nutrition because you're in a muscle building phase. You're no longer fat loss. You just think that you can eat whatever you want because you're in a build now. That can backfire real quick. And the fear of not eating enough. If you're not eating enough, you don't need necessarily to eat in a huge surplus like we discussed already. But if you're not eating nearly enough of what you need, protein, carbs, and fats, you're not going to be seeing the progress you want. Okay. You're not going to be supporting that muscle growth there. Number 2, lifting too light or not training hard enough, which we talked about several times. So many women will stay way too far from failure. Realistically stopping at like 5 reps before they actually should. And that's where most of you are missing the gains there. Okay. So if your last few reps are easy and they flow the same way that the first reps do, that's way too light. Okay. And we're not necessarily talking about straight specific loads, because let's say that you're training at home and you don't have a way to bump up more weight, but we can still make it harder or apply some progression there. We can slow down the tempo. We can apply a pause. We can apply a rest pause where You finish your sets, and then 10 to 20 seconds later, you rest for 10 to 20 seconds, and then you try again, and then you try again until you fail. There are multiple techniques and things that you can do, even if you don't have loads of loads at home, um, to maximize that potential there. Okay. Three, not prioritizing progressive overload. So lifting the same way, the same reps, the same way for weeks and weeks and weeks and months on end. Nothing changes if nothing changes. Okay. If you don't challenge the muscles, they have no reason to grow. That's plain simple. Number four, doing too much cardio, trying to kill two birds with one stone. You end up killing none. So excessive cardio will interfere with hypertrophy. That doesn't mean that you can't do like 20, 30 minutes 3 times a week. That's even good for your heart health in general. But long duration cardio, endurance training, running marathons, things like that, that is the opposite of what we want for muscle growth. So that makes things harder and harder and harder for you. Okay. Five, training with too much volume, too much junk volume. So more volume, more exercises, more sets, more reps, more variety, more techniques here and there. That doesn't mean that it's going to be better. Okay. The basics work, and the intensity that you apply in each workout is your responsibility. We can give the same exact workout for a beginner and for an advanced lifter, and that advanced person will be absolutely crushed, and the beginner will think that that's a beginner's workout because they don't know how to push themselves hard enough. So it's the basics, okay? It is between 4 to 6 exercises per session, and not a whole lot of volume, not a whole lot of things, just good old execution of that plan, okay? Because doing too much will just lead to excess fatigue and not enough of the right stimulus for muscle growth, okay? So quality always matters more than quantity in this case. Then seven, not training the right muscle groups for the goal that you have. But in general, what I see women doing is they overemphasize glutes or legs in general and neglect upper body. Um, that's in general. Like I said, aesthetic balance, like an aesthetically pleasing physique. You want to train both upper and lower really well. And you want to develop nice shoulders. You want to develop your back. That does not mean that you're going to get bulky there. It just means that you're going to be more aesthetically balanced overall. Okay. And with strength as well. If you're aiming to like get stronger on your lifts, if you want to get really strong with, let's say, walking lunges, you're going to have to develop some serious upper body strength to be able to carry a heavier load. Poor exercise execution, so not using full range of motion or just wrongly doing the exercise. So this leads to less tension, less stimulus, less growth, using momentum instead of controlled movement. That obviously will reduce hypertrophy. Okay. Like I always say, I don't want you to become overly obsessed about being textbook perfect when it comes to execution, but the execution has to be really good. Your training technique, your training, the exercise execution needs to be in place. You need to be controlling the weight. You need to have a controlled movement pattern. You need to be executing it good in a good enough way to allow you to progress on that. Okay. Otherwise, you're not going to be engaging the muscles. A good example of this is hip thrusts, which is a mistake that I myself did years ago, which was just going for the heavier load, but you were never locking in your hips at the top and really squeezing and feeling the glutes at the top. You would go super heavy, but you would stop midway through, never really engaging the glutes and overcompensating on your lumbar. And then you would feel back pain and you don't know why. And you're like, oh, I'm super strong. I'm hip thrusting 400 pounds. But you're not doing anything for your glutes if you're not doing a full hip extension at the top. So those things are important. Now, number nine, not getting enough sleep and recovery, just like I said. So muscle grow when we rest, not when we train. When we train, we give the initial signal. And then nutrition, rest, sleep, recovery, those things are going to do its job to help you build those muscles. Number 10, expecting results too quickly. Okay. Lack of patience or lack of understanding about how the process works. And I hope that this training helps you to gain clarity on what's required of the process and how the process works for you to be patient, but knowing why you're patient, not just being patient and like not having any clarity on what to expect, right? Um, Muscle growth is really, really strong, is really, really slow. Okay. Real hypertrophy takes months to years to happen, years. And what happens typically is that women will quit too early because they don't see fast changes, and that just keeps them stuck. Okay. Scale it, weight will go up. You have to accept that. Okay. But just wanting the scale to go up as fast as possible, it's just going to backfire because if you gain too much too quickly, that means that you're probably putting on more body fat than we wanted. Okay. Now, just quickly on some supplement recommendations, just because we talked about training, we talked about nutrition, um, and some supplements that might be helpful during this phase. Um, and the ones that you don't need. Okay, so you don't need fat burners, you don't need testosterone boosters, you don't need BCAAs, you don't need glutamine. Glutamine is good for gut health, but not necessarily contributing to muscle growth. But they stack that, we call it minimalist stack because this is typically what we recommend for everyone in every phase, in every season, right? So your creatine, your omega-3, your vitamin D, and your magnesium. Those are, the four main ones. And then protein powder as needed to hit your goals. But if you can hit your protein goals without protein powder, great. So you don't need protein powder. It's more so an additional source to help you hit your goals. Like I typically hit 170 grams of protein without protein powder if I don't want them. Number three, caffeine. That can be helpful for your pre-workout. That just leads to better performance during your workout. And nothing fancy here, just like plain old caffeine. Coffee does the job. Okay. Now, any questions? I know that we're over time a little bit here, but any questions that you have, let me just check the chat first.
Okay.
Uh, Diana, you unmuted yourself.
Yes, because I am, I just wanted to talk about where were you talking about the hypertrophy? Like every time I'm that woman that doesn't wait until she's actually failed, and you've pointed that out to me now that I'm filming myself. So you said that take a few seconds break when I think that I have reached the point where I can't anymore, and then try again.
Yeah.
And then just
So
go a few more reps just to see if I can get more out of it.
yes. So this is not like you should do that every single time and this is how it works.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is because it is really hard for us to gauge if we're truly near that point of failure. And
Okay.
the only way that you're going to know is to try to test and try, right? Even myself, guys. If my coach when my coach watches my videos, sometimes she's like, "Oh, you got more. You left like way more than that." So it is really hard to be alone in the gym and really push yourself hard. So do that test, do that as a test. Finish the set when you think that, okay, this was my max. Give it 10 seconds and try again and see how many more you could have gotten.
One more question, if it's okay. So in
Oh,
the
sure.
incline dumbbell chest press, I've been stuck at the 25 weight for a while now, and I know that's hard movement to progress in. So I know that you last weekend Last week, I mean, I used the same weight and I was able, and I had 4 rounds, and in 3 rounds, I was able to get up to 12 with a 25. So this week, I have to do it again. So I should start at 27.5. But in my mind, I'm afraid that when I get to set number 3, I won't be able to hit not even 8 with the 27.5 pound on
And so
each. Like,
what? And so what?
okay, okay, fine. So I'll start there. That was it.
No monsters are gonna jump out of the machine, man. It won't bite your ass. It'll just
Okay, I'll
finish.
do that.
You just do that.
Because it's a fear in my head. It's like, okay, so what if I can't? If I can only do 6, fine, then I'll only do
So
6.
what?
Okay, okay,
No
okay.
boogie monster, man. Just do it.
I'd rather you do 6 because I know you pushed yourself hard than you not try because you're afraid of what, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's myself. Okay, got it. Okay, I'll do that. I'm gonna try
Yeah.
try that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? We're good. Carrie?
I'm sorry for being late. I
Oh, good.
forgot that your time changed.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, yeah, the time change here. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Dorota was like, I was late for check-in. I'm like, but it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't see you till 7. It's like, no, it's now. I'm like, but it's 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's when I figured out. So then I
Yeah.
showed up late to this too. Sorry, mate. I'll have to watch it again.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll drop the recordings as soon as it's available.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Let me see if there's anything else that I wanted to chat with you ladies. I think that's it on my end here, guys. Um, like any questions at the Billies? I know you watched since the beginning.
Uh, Not really. I think you answered it. Um, I too was not I guess I wasn't working to failure. Um, but I also have a fear of
A
getting
failure.
a fear of getting hurt.
Mhm. Fair
You know,
enough.
I'm a
Yeah.
little older.
Yep.
Sometimes my knees hurt.
Yep.
Uh, I know I've been hurt before. So I know if I want to look a certain way,
Yep.
so I'm hopeful. And
Mm.
if I know that if I get hurt, then I have to stop
Right.
and
Which
I'm going to
is fair
suffer
enough.
and I'm
It,
going to
it's
suffer.
it's like yeah, it's appropriate to think that way, right? But okay, objectively, which exercise specifically do you fear getting hurt?
Mostly when it's legs. Anything with I'm afraid of hurting my back.
Okay.
Uh, the goblet squat,
Yep.
the what is it? The sumo squat.
Mm. Okay.
Anything where I'm using my back and I may use it wrong. I'm afraid of hurting it. And lately I've been wearing a belt because I have a little bit of sway back
Mm.
all my life. So, which means the small of my back is a little too curved out. So when I sleep, I actually have to sleep with a little pillow to straighten my
Mhm.
back. So
So one
sometimes
thing,
when I sleep wrong, I wake up with a little bit of a backache. So those days I have a little hard time like moving around.
right, right.
So
So a few things,
mhm.
maybe some exercise adjustments that we could make on our end, but also just adding some more core work and learning how to engage core properly because your core, your ab muscles are going to be your best belt around your spine to protect you,
Yeah,
right? And pushing yourself to failure doesn't necessarily mean that you're adding a load that's going to compromise your spine. You
right,
can push yourself to failure with the same weight that you're doing as long as you're doing more reps. Maybe
right.
you're slowing down the
Well,
reps. Maybe
and
we're
I,
adding rest pauses. Maybe we're, so there are different ways to get to that point of failure. So
Okay.
when we talk failure, we don't necessarily mean they're going to be maxing out weight, load. And we need to make sure that when we're looking over your exercise execution and things like that, that you have that core really engaged, that the breathing is appropriate, and maybe adding some work there to help you with that over time.
Yeah, I'm really careful, but that pause thing that you said today, that's good. I didn't know that.
Mhm,
There's sometimes where I stop, like I was telling Dorota for the the uh the squats.
mhm,
Is it the front raise squats that you hold on? I could probably do more, but once I lose my balance,
mhm,
that's it. I'm like, okay, I
mhm.
can't do anymore. I
Which
lost
makes
my
sense.
balance and that's it.
Right.
But what you're saying is, and what she told me too, because I mentioned it to her, just align yourself again and do some more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
So, and
thought once I lost my
that's
balance,
where
that was it. Yeah.
proper breathing and core engagement comes in, because it is absolutely normal to re-engage your core midway through the exercise, re-engage your breathing midway through as well. Like I could share some of my own videos and point out when I do that so you can see that. So some sets might take a while to complete because you're, kind of resetting. Obviously, you don't want to take forever that you lose the tension on the muscle, but yeah, just realign yourself, re-engage your core, um, align your breathing and go for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Mm-hmm. I think
awesome.
I'm doing pretty good. I
Good.
record every set. I told her. I just sent her the last one, but I check myself,
Yeah,
check
that's
it
what
over
we
and
ask
over.
for. We
Yeah.
want to see the last one,
Oh,
and we
okay.
want to see three. We want to see the last one, and we want to see 3 to 4 videos per week, just
Right.
to give you guys time to execute on the feedback too.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
not too much information that you're like lost on what to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
perfect. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for showing up, guys. This was very exciting. If you have any questions after watching this, if anything pops to mind, just drop it in the WhatsApp group, and I will respond there. But thank you for showing up. Lovely to see you guys and see you next time. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.